Hello, this is Lydia Scott from lydiascott.com, and I wanted to talk to you today about forgiveness. And forgiveness is for you. It's not for the person who needs your forgiveness, but it is to relieve you of the heartache inside yourself, so you can start to be free of whatever it is that is holding you captive in relationship to this other person or situation. This is Solo, my kitty. He's a very lovey kitty. Anyway, forgiveness is also not about forgetting necessarily. A lot of people hear the phrase forgive and forget, but I think that's what most people fear, is thinking that those two things have to go hand in hand. If I forgive, then I have to let them come back into my life and they'll just do the same thing they were doing. Well, actually, that wouldn't be good. And so forgiving is accepting the situation as it is, what has happened, and then it's also accepting responsibility for your own recovery from it, because that other person is probably not going to be able to help you. Maybe in some situations they can help you in the recovery process, but most likely you're going to be the one who is responsible for your own recovery from the situation. If it's traumatic, then you're going to be responsible for the recovery. It doesn't mean that you caused it or you were at fault for it, but you're going to be the only person that is capable of restoring yourself. You can reach out for help from a therapist or different self-help groups and things like that, for sure, but you're the one who will be initiating those processes. So in this sense, you're responsible. So recovery or forgetting is not necessarily part of the process of forgiveness, in terms of allowing that person back into your life to the extent of accepting abuse or whatever was going on before. Actually, it's often easier to forgive after you have stopped the abuse or whatever was going on, or moved out of the situation or moved away from it. Actually, forgiveness is much easier once you've found a resolution for the situation for yourself. It's going to be very hard to forgive if the situation is ongoing. However, in many situations and relationships, that is sometimes what happens, is that you're asked to forgive before the situation is even resolved. And that's going to be very challenging. I don't know how that can happen, except if you're at the point where you realize that you have to practice acceptance of the situation, and that is a form of resolution. If you practice acceptance of a situation, and that's a whole other video, I have a video on that called Radical Acceptance. If you've accepted the situation, you've usually found an internal resolution or an external resolution or way to solve that problem. But forgetting a situation that caused you pain, what happens with people is that they will often actually forgive and forget, and they allow that person to do the same things that they were doing before that caused a lot of pain or drama or uncomfortability. Now, there's a difference if you are demanding people change something that is their business and not really your business, then you're actually exerting your control into their life and their sphere of responsibility. And that's a hard distinction to make. So you have to figure out if it's really your business, and if your boundaries are being violated or theirs are. Or if you're violating their boundaries and saying you have a problem with something. For instance, if somebody has an eating disorder or overeats, or we don't like the way that's going and we're concerned about it, there is a place where we can, parts of that are just not our business. The only place where it intersects with our business is with our lives, and where we have a say about what's going on is if it's affecting our relationship with them. And if that's the case and we have a problem, then we need to own that problem. But it's not necessarily something that they need to seek forgiveness from us for. So, but getting back to what is really our business and where we have certainly been violated, or our boundaries have been violated, or we've been abused, or some ongoing situation, we need to have a resolution to that situation, and even a plan, if you will, in certain situations. But it does not require that we forget the past. We may become emotionally removed from the situation after we're sure that things have changed. We start to lose the emotional triggers for that. We don't have knee-jerk reactions regarding the mention of that situation. That's what I think is meant by forgetting after forgiveness happens. It's after a resolution has been reached between the two parties and the situation's been resolved. So we just wanted to make that clear, that it can actually be dangerous to forget in certain situations what has occurred in the past if it was very severe. It's very important sometimes to remember the situation actually if it's a very serious situation. For instance, as in child abuse, if somebody was abusing children, and let's say you were the recipient of that at some point, well, if you go and forget that and and you find your own healing in the situation and you forget it, you just put it out of your mind, well, you have to ask, maybe, what is that person doing to other people? Am I going to forget and not let that person around my children? No, you certainly wouldn't. That's dangerous to forget. You may have forgiven the person for what they've done, but in that situation it can be dangerous to forget. So anyway, if you would like some more information on other topics similar to this, blend of spiritual psychology, or spirituality and psychology, forming spiritual psychology, you can go to lydiascott.com or rainbowgates.com for more information and other things that we have to offer. And the whole point is to have a great day and have a great life. Bye. See you later.